Hi, if you don't know me already, my name is Gaius Augustus. I am a multimedia communicator, and I've been creating a set of Adobe Illustrator tutorials to help others learn to draw in Illustrator, which can be a little overwhelming. Last time, if you missed it, we talked about the general interface of Adobe Illustrator, and I mentioned that you were probably feeling let down because we didn't start drawing. But today we're actually going to start making something, so I hope that that's exciting for you. So there are two main ways that I like to draw, and today I'm going to show you the basic elements of the first way, which is just using basic shapes. It might surprise you, but a lot of the art that I do, I just use basic shapes for, and then I alter, merge, separate out those shapes to create whatever patterns I'm trying to do. So I just want to go through the shape tools today with you and show you all of the different elements of them and how they work together. So I'm going to start from the simplest tool to the most complex tool just to make things easier. And also because some of them have some of the same options available, I'm going to use that to my advantage and show you that from simplest to most complex. So let's start with the circle tool. So on your toolbar on the left, you should see the ellipse tool, which hopefully looks like an ellipse. You can also get to the tool by pressing the L key on your keyboard. I'm a huge believer in using keyboard shortcuts, so I encourage you to start thinking about these and using them, and it will become second nature to you at some point to use them. Now to draw a circle, you can just click and drag. And you'll notice that an ellipse shows up, and you can kind of drag in. As soon as you let go, it creates a circle for you, or an ellipse for you. But maybe this isn't exactly what you want. Instead, you can make it a perfect circle just by holding the shift key. So I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to hold the shift key this time and watch what happens. So this is without the shift key. This is with the shift key. You see how now, no matter where I drag my pointer, it always stays a perfect circle. That's incredibly useful. Now there's one more point that I want to make with the circle tool, and that is instead of just pressing shift, let's hold down Alt or Option on a Mac. You'll notice that the actual cursor changes, and watch what happens when I click and drag. You'll notice now it's coming from the center. So instead of trying to figure out where the top of your circle or bottom of your circle wants to be, you can actually just say, okay, well, I want it to start in the middle of this other circle, and so I'm just going to click in the center, and then I can draw something that is much closer to where in size I want than otherwise. And if you combine this with the shift key, so I'm still holding down Alt, and now I'm going to hold down shift, and now you have the perfect circle and it goes from the center. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and delete these. I'm going to delete them by using the selection tool, which is a V on your keyboard. I'm just going to drag over all of them and press the delete key. Alright, so next I'm going to move on to the square tool. Now, if you look in your menu, and there's a little triangle next to the ellipse tool, and if you look in your menu, you'll actually notice there's a rectangle tool and a rounded rectangle tool. By default, you have the rectangle tool. And actually, if you press M on your keyboard, you'll have the rectangle tool, not the rounded rectangle tool. I actually customized this because you could make rectangles out of rounded rectangles. So it just means that it's easier to use one tool to do everything I want. So I'm going to select the rounded rectangle tool, and you'll notice that some things are the same. So if I click and drag, I get a rectangle. If I hold down shift while I drag, I get a perfect square. And if I hold down Alt, I get to choose from the inside where my rectangle starts. All right. Now, see these circles at the edges? Those circles help you control how much roundedness you have. And so I can actually click and drag these in to make a fully rounded rectangle, click and drag these out to have a perfect corner. You can also do this while you are putting down the rectangle. So I'm going to click and drag, and now I'm going to press the arrow keys on my keyboard. So watch what happens when I press the right arrow. See how it became totally rounded? And as I expand, if I press the right arrow again, it'll keep rounding it off for me. So if it's ever not round enough, you just press the right arrow again and it becomes more round. Now instead, I'm going to press the left arrow. You'll notice it becomes complete corners again. So this is what I was saying earlier when I was saying that you can use the rounded rectangle to make rectangles. But if you don't want all the way rounded or completely straight corners, you can actually use the up and down arrows. So I'm pressing the up arrow now, the down arrow, up, down. And you can see that I can really customize by looks how I want the border radius to be. Alright, so again, I'm going to press B on the keyboard to get back to our selection tool. I'm going to click and drag everything, and I'm going to press the delete key. And we're going to move on to the next shape. So the next tool I want you to take a look at on your tool menu, again under the rounded rectangle and ellipse tool, is the Polygon tool. So let's choose that one. Now when you first use the Polygon tool and click and drag, you're going to have a hexagon. You'll notice that this tool starts you in the middle, and that's just a quirk of this tool and the next tool we'll be talking about. But if instead you don't want a hexagon, that's okay. We can actually change the number of points by using the up and down arrows. So I'm going to press the up arrow, and you'll see it added a point. If I press the down arrow, you'll see we go down. So I'm going to press again, 5, 4, 3. So I can get all the way down to a triangle. I use this tool all the time to make triangles, actually. And then if I keep pressing the up key, you can see that you go up and up and up until you get so many points that it's practically a circle. So you can really do a lot of cool things with this tool, and I encourage you to kind of play around with it. Now in this case, I'm going to go down to a smaller number of points. In this case, if you hold down the shift key, it actually just makes that flat bottom for you. So if I'm not holding down the shift key, I can turn it and put it however I want. But if I hold the shift key down like now, no matter how I move my mouse around, that flat bottom is always there. Now in this case, you can't create rounded corners while you're creating it, at least not as far as I know. But what you can do is you can round to the corners afterwards. And remember these dots that I showed you earlier on, you can use these same dots to round off the corners. So again, if I just drag out, they'll become corners again, and if I drag in, they'll become rounded. Alright, so one more time, pressing the V key, which is the selection tool, dragging, and pressing delete. So the last tool I want to talk about today is the star tool. It's under the same menu we've been working with this whole tutorial, and it works in much the similar way as the Polygon tool. I'm going to click and drag, and you'll see my star. If I hold down the shift key, you'll see that it keeps it flat on the bottom. But there's a couple other cool features about the star tool. If you hold down the alt key, you'll notice that instead of it having this kind of fat look, you can make it have the straight angular look of this. So this is holding on the alt or option key on a Mac. If I hold the control key, I can actually change the depth of the star. So I'm holding the control key down and I'm pulling out or pushing in. So you can imagine you can make a ton of shapes this way. I love these like fat little stars, and so I often will create stars that look more like this. Alright, and then the last thing is that just like the Polygon tool, if we want more points, we can just press the up key. And if we want to remove points, we can press the down key. And again, we can get all the way down to a triangle. So you see you can do a lot of really cool things with this tool. If you press the alt key, you get a perfect triangle. Of course, you can always use the Polygon tool as well. So with this tool, we can make all sorts of different types of stars. Like that. And then the last tool that I just want to introduce you to, and I won't spend much time on it, is the line segment tool. It's in a different place here on its own, and I just want to mention this because I use the line tool for a lot of things, and in the next video we will be discussing a couple of the ways you can use the line tool. So you can get to the line tool by clicking the backslash arrow on your keyboard, which is above the enter key, and you use it just like the others. You click and drag and it creates lines. Alright, that's what I wanted to cover today as far as shapes are concerned. In the next video, what I want to show you is how to then take these shapes and manipulate them in such a way that we can create other shapes just using these basic shapes that you learned today. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.